作为一个混血，现在住在中国，生活是什么样的感觉？
感觉还挺好，但是大部分的人会觉得我不太像外国人。
比如说上地理课的时候，老师会放一些印度的照片出来，印度的人这样坐火车，全部都挂在上面。
A strange thing for me is I look more like Asian when I gain weight. So right now I actually gained quite a lot of weight after moving back to China.
从幼儿园到小学，走哪儿就能听到一个同学说啊，有个外国人。
I do think part of me is connected a little bit more to the Japanese side.
I only say I'm Chinese. I'm white, but I'm also Chinese. But then they ask me like, you're not Chinese.
Korean people, I think the society has a much more rigorous hierarchy system.
Hello guys, welcome back to today's video. So in today's video, I interview a few people who are half Chinese. We will hear some of their unique life stories, whether they grew up in China or abroad. What's it like growing up mixed? And how they see cultural difference from their perspective. If this is your first time in my channel, my name is Aiden. I interview people all over the world about China and Chinese culture. So let's jump in.
Thank you so much for your time. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Kyle. I'm 17 years old. My dad's from India, his nationality, and my mom's from China.
Hello, bonjour. My name is Chloe. I'm from France. I'm half Chinese and half French, and I live in China almost 2 years.
我是 Hero， 我妈妈是日本人，我爸爸是台北的。我在西雅图出生，北京长大，大学在美国那边读书。现在我来上海工作。
So my name is Emma. I'm half French, half Chinese. I'm here for an internship in Shanghai.
My name is Raul and my Chinese name is Zheng Yunge. I'm half Spanish and half Chinese. I was born in China and I lived in Nanjing for 13 years. Then I moved over to Germany.
我是在中国出生的刚果人，父母是刚果和中国人，但是2岁多去国外生活。
My name is Martin Su. I was born and raised in Shanghai actually. My mother's Korean and my dad's from Shanghai.
你的中文更好还是英文更好？
我的中文更好。我来这里之前想把我的中文学得更好。
作为一个混血，现在住在中国，生活是什么样的感觉？
感觉还挺好，但是大部分的人会觉得我不太像外国人，更像新疆人，所以他们会，我经常可能我已经数不了多少个人问我你是新疆的吗？然后有时候会直接会用他们的语言跟我说话。新疆人会问我，然后别的中国人也会先问我你是新疆的吗？
当他们得知你不是新疆人，他们是什么样的反应？
他们就很惊讶。中国人还会问我法国是不是很浪漫的国家。知道我是 half Chinese 的时候，就会问我很多关于中国文化的，我会不会了解。
Can you say something in Korean and also in Shanghainese?
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 마틴입니다. 저는 상해에서 자랐고, 이제 미국에서 대학교 다니고 이제 다시 상해로 돌아왔습니다. 大家好，我是马丁苏，我是上海人，对吧？阿拉也是上海人，但是阿拉妈妈是韩国人。那么我是从小来上海长大的，所以呢，我觉着我自家就是一个上海人。虽然讲我讲韩文，阿拉妈是韩国人，但是呢，我觉得上海是一个非常 international 的一个城市。所以讲呢，where my parents are from, I grew up here, I speak Shanghainese, and I think I'm Shanghainese. Korean people, I think the society has a much more rigorous hierarchy system, meaning that when you see someone, like for example, like when I'm speaking to you in English or Chinese, you know, we're speaking like pretty equally, right? But if you happen to be Korean, then I'll be like, 안녕하세요 형님, like I have to call you brother, older brother,哥哥. And then I have to say everything in what we say 존댓말, which means like honorific kind of phrases. If I'm speaking to a friend that's my age or someone that's younger than me, I can say 안녕, right? But if you're older than me, or if we don't know each other, I have to say 안녕하세요, and I have to do like a slight bow or like a big bow if you are much older. So it's more complicated, I'd say. And Chinese people are just, in general, more chill.
作为混血在中国出生长大是什么样的感觉？
我觉得其实因为我的认知的话，我在中国出生长大，我还认知上是一个中国人，我的国籍也是中国。但是作为一个混血，你会有更多的维度去看这个世界。因为如果我在印度的话，我也可以说我自己是印度人；我在中国可以说我自己中国人。你有这种不一样的背景，在一种文化的碰撞当中长大。比如说我妈妈她可能有一些思想是比较中式的，我爸爸会有一些比较英式的或者一些国外的思想。比如说家里有一些问题，他会碰撞，他会有一些矛盾。每次去不一样的国家都是完全不同的体验。 如果我在英国吃过1个月的白人饭，后面去伦敦的唐人街一吃到火锅，真的哭出来了。
所以你的胃终究还是中国胃。
终究还是中国胃，对。
我比较好奇，你小时候长大的时候，在父母双方文化差异这么大的情况下，你是如何找到一个平衡点？
这个平衡点可能这还真的不好说。比如说我的英语的话，我现在在想起来，我是先学会英语才学会中文的，中文真的比较难。甚至试过我和妹妹一起回印度以后，像应该是幼儿园的时候，后面回到幼儿园已经把中文忘光了，就是因为你一整个月可能2个月都在印度，然后都只说英语，然后又要重新学中文。
I would say for me it was pretty easy to adapt to because I went to an international school in China as well. It really just felt like moving into a different international environment. Like the biggest difference for me, I think, is the living, because in China it was just also convenient and you could go out whenever you want because there would always be something to do. But then in Germany, the time is a lot more limited, so you do spend a lot more time at home because everything closes at 8, at least in Munich, and on Sundays everything is also closed. Really, the activities you do with your friends is just hang out outside instead of going to a bowling place or something like in China. A strange thing for me is I look more like Asian when I gain weight. So right now I actually gained quite a lot of weight after moving back to China because I like the food here a lot. So people would say in China that now I look like I'm from Xinjiang, but then in Europe I was 20 kilos lighter than I am now. So I have more European the bone structures and everything. I was treated as a complete foreigner.
因为我是我小时候，然后2岁都出国了嘛，但是回来的时候还是感觉是个外国人一样，因为看起来我也不像一个中国人，头发皮肤除了眼睛，但是我戴着眼镜，所以大部分人看不到。然后说话的时候就能感觉到有点像中国人一样，也有时候说话也有那个北京的儿化音。然后在刚果也有这个感觉，还是一个外国人，也不是跟刚果人一模一样吗？
你觉得你自己的性格更偏向于刚果，还是更偏向于中国？
不能说我是一个刚果人还是一个中国人，我是2个一起，不能是一个。
So how's it like growing up as half Chinese, half Japanese?
I think it's good. I get to experience cultures from different parts of East Asia. But what's been the greatest for me is being able to speak the different languages. It helps me connect with people from all over the world. And especially I think with Mandarin, you can connect with Southeast Asian, Chinese, and all these different places. You get to meet people from all over the world. So
Do you think you are more connected to the Chinese root or the Japanese root?
that's a great question. I do think part of me is connected a little bit more to the Japanese side because my elementary school was in a Japanese, speaking school, and it was actually a Beijing embassy was sponsoring, for a lot of Japanese families or workers in Beijing. Basically, it was a Japanese school. I didn't really attend a Chinese school. I went to an international school, like an American high school, middle school and high school. Now that I'm living in China and I'm in Shanghai, part of the reason why I came here to want to work here and to live here is to be more connected to this Chinese side.
So in France, right now I'm in Paris, so I think as I look French, quite white, people don't really care. But in China, even if I'm half French, half Chinese, they consider me totally white. So I think I get the foreigner treatment. Yeah, I think it can be a benefit, but also it's quite sad because I'm not fully white,
How people usually treat you in China when they know you are half Chinese?
Right now, when someone asks me where I'm from, I only say I'm Chinese because I'm Chinese, I'm white, but I'm also Chinese. But then they ask me you're not Chinese. So I tell them that I'm Asian and so you're not Chinese. So it's really they don't really accept I'm Chinese because I look white. I don't know for the other Asians who looks more Chinese, but for me it's really kind of hurtful because I'm Chinese too.
Previously, I made a video about Maya, who is half Lebanese, half Chinese. She grew up in Kuwait and Hong Kong and now living in China. She's able to speak Cantonese, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, French, and English. If you are a Cantonese speaker who is trying to learn Mandarin and your Cantonese level is stuck in a Sektem level, and you're trying to learn Mandarin and also improving your Cantonese, but the old methods just don't work. If that's you, you need to know about today's sponsor, the Canto to Mando School, because they have already figured out the problem. The issue isn't you, it's that you have been learning like a tourist. Generic apps and classes force you to learn fluent English, making you feel like your Cantonese is like a handicap, but the Canto to mentor approach is like a game changer. They started with a powerful idea. Your Cantonese level of Sekting Sekong is not a handicap, it's actually your greatest asset. Their entire system uses shortcuts like grammar bridging and tone conversations to help you translate the language you already know into fluent Mandarin. It's a method designed specifically for heritage Cantonese speakers who can speak a little but can't read or write Chinese. Now they have put together a free masterclass that breaks down everything. It's called the Rapid Mandarin Fluency Masterclass for Cantonese speakers. Check the link in my description to get access now. Okay, now let's get back to the video.
I grew up in a small town of the south of France, so I think it's not the same childhood of the Asian who grew up in Paris, because there is really only white people. Like, as I am like white passing, people cannot really tell that I'm Chinese, but when they see my mom, they start making racist comments. Got it a lot in school when I was like 10 years old. For 2 years, when we were on the streets, if they see another Asian people, like, they will call them to tell me, it's your cousin, you have to talk with this person, and things like that, and Ting Chong and like that. So yeah, I got a lot of racist comments there.
比如说我还记得从小在幼儿园，从幼儿园到小学，走哪儿就能听到一个同学说啊，有个外国人，我跟你是50%一样啊，那为什么开始说我呀？然后就有点服了，就每次去学校就有人打扰，然后就在小学的时候，我一直打架。
你是欺负别人还是别人欺负你？
别人欺负我就打别人，是因为我跟他们不一样，就开始来欺负我。
那你打架打赢还是打输？
反正我打他哭了。
你在上学的时候有经历过吗？
这个也有，可能因为我皮肤比较黑，但别人会上来说我是那个 N word。这个其实对我杀伤力不大，因为我本来就不是，对吧？我反而会觉得他真的好无知，因为首先他把印度定位在了非洲，这就很蠢，在我看来。然后其实我觉得很多人他真的不懂这个词的意思是什么，它是种族歧视当时一种真的非常侮辱性的一种称呼。然后你会听到在很多学校里面，其实只要皮肤黑的小孩他都会被这样叫，其实真的非常不好。除了这个，可能就是比如说上地理课的时候，老师会放一些印度的照片出来，印度的人这样坐火车全部都挂在上面，要买挂票、买吊票这种。可能一开始确实我会觉得就是这些人好烦，他要一直这样叫我，然后他真的是 racist。但是后面我就发现，真的跟你聊得来的人，真的把你当朋友的人，他不在乎这些，他真的是可以平等的去和你沟通和对待你的。然后，那我就会对我好的人，我也对他好，对吧？这种礼尚往来一样的。然后有一些人，他可能真的就是，你要是跟我合不来的话，那我也懒得鸟你。
I'd say for me, I feel like I'm more Chinese because I did spend like a lot of my time growing up here, like until I was 13 years old, because I feel like the two cultures are quite different actually. So it did take me actually some time to get used to the European culture and everything after I moved back to Europe. Having experienced both, I kind of think like I like the outgoing of the Europeans, but I do also like how you could get to spend like your own time and find like your own activities in China to spend like time as personally, because there's a lot of things I could do here alone that are quite interesting for me. But in Germany, I feel like it's like I go out for a walk or something like that, and I'm just not quite used to that. But then in Germany, that's like a very common thing to do. You go out for a walk on a weekend with your friends and stuff like that, or just like yourself, and then that's already like a pretty fun activity. But then here, I'm more used to just finding a place to go to and having fun. In China, because I spent like before my teenage times here, so under your parents' control, it's only now that I do really get to go out myself and spend time myself around here. In Germany, I feel like they let their kids out like when they're just in primary school, and that's probably where they develop like the skills to just head out alone. That's also like a culture difference, I think.
I do think part of me is connected a little bit more to the Japanese side because my elementary school was in a Japanese speaking school. Other than that school, I didn't really attend a Chinese school. You know, I went to international school, like American high school, middle school and high school. I think education is very big, right? But I think now that I'm living in China and I'm in Shanghai, part of the reason why I came here to to want to work here and to live here is to be more connected to this Chinese side. I hope that in the future I will continue to be also in this side of the world as well.
How's it like living in China?
Living in China is like quite convenient, I would say. There is everything possible to do everything here. Also, it's cheaper than France.
Any cultural difference?
I think here people are more open to foreigners, and also the cultures is totally different.
我觉得住在法国的一个缺点就是没有安全感。对于一个女生来说，留在中国是最好的一个选择，因为有安全感，你可以就是随便穿衣服，不会怕就是会有，比如说男人会去欺负你，然后你晚上也可以随便出去，也不怕就是天黑了马上要回家，因为我住在法国的时候，我知道10点钟大概太阳就下山然后我就会回家，因为我觉得晚上的巴黎是最可怕的。还有很好的东西在中国就是有很多美食，虽然我很喜欢吃法国餐，但是其实就是那几个，就是意大利面、披萨。就在中国的缺点，我是觉得刚开始每个人都会排队，觉得很文明，但是那个门一打开，他们就会推你，因为想去抢那个位置，所以我就觉得有时候中国人有时候还会就是不够文明。
因为国外他就10点到3点就是他的上学时间，我爸可能不懂，我现在每天早上6点半就起床，然后上学，搞到晚上10点半才下晚自习，他不懂这种教育的模式。比如说我高中我压力很大或者怎么样，我也没有太多去跟他沟通的办法，但他会理解我，他还是会支持我。外国人不会把学习看得那么重，跟中国不太一样，他们会觉得学习不是唯一的出路。但你在中国的话，你又会知道，虽然学习不是唯一的出路，但肯定是最好的出路。
Here it's more like you're always supervised and everything. Although that's like safer, it does like also limit what you can do. But it does like help deal with like the drinking or like the drugs that begin at a young age, because that usually starts around like 14 there in Germany. But then here it's, I think, quite more regulated.
小时候成长的时候有什么样比较有趣的故事可以跟大家分享？
有时候朋友来我家的时候，发现我跟我父母交流的时候是用两种语言，用法语和汉语一起用，就一个句子里有汉语也有法语。
你可以说几句法语吗
？Bonjour, je m'appelle Jérôme. Bienvenue sur la chaîne d'Aiden.
就是你性格上最中国人的一部分是什么样的？
听毛不易。我听说有些中国人不听毛不易，但是我
最刚果人的一部分的性格是什么样的？
刚果的文化与中国文化挺像的。
哦。
所以这个我有点说不清。
What's the most Korean part about you?
Most people will say my face. Like when I was in the US, most people would first guess I am from Korea, right? Which is true, you know, I'm ethnically half Korean. And maybe sometimes I dress more Korean, maybe my hairstyle. Yeah, my barber's Korean, so maybe that also plays a role. I think for me, I can code switch pretty good in terms of when I meet a Korean person. Like if you were Korean, I can do the whole, you know, the Korean thing. I can bow, I can say 존댓말, the honorifics, whatever. I can do all of those. If you're Chinese or if you're like European American, you know, I can be more chill. I can speak Mandarin, speak Shanghainese. So I'd say I can switch pretty easily, yeah.
What about what's the most Chinese part about you?
I think the fact that I can speak Shanghainese, a dialect, is pretty Chinese about me for my age, because most kids around me that grew up in Shanghai can't really speak our home dialect because everyone speaks Mandarin nowadays. But to me, I think I have such a strong bond with Shanghai as a city, so I try as much as I can to speak my home dialect, including in my channel. I try to promote my home kind of culture, our Shanghainese dialect, as much as possible.
Give these guys a follow bottom. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So as half Japanese,
Yeah.
Growing up in China, do you receive a lot of controversial questions, like people approach you asking you random questions?
The biggest is like when I'm on the taxis. And when I was in Beijing, growing up, I'd always sit in the taxis, and you know, 这边的司机先生、师傅们都很友善 you know, they're very friendly. 所以他们可能都会问我一些问题吧，他们会问我是哪里人，然后怎么我有一些口音。When those questions start to come up, then I have to explain, oh, my mom's from Tokyo, my dad's from Taipei, and then I was born in America. And you know, then it's becomes an interesting question, because sometimes the drivers will start to say, oh, you know, like with the World War II, you know, and those things, you know, a lot of bring past histories up, and I completely understand, you know, and those questions I'm usually like, yeah, I know a lot of bad things happened in the past, and you know, we're sorry for that, but you know, I'm kind of unrelated because I wasn't even born, you know, I'm a newer generation. So but I do think a lot of the younger, newer generations are very accepting of just Japanese culture, you know, Chinese, Taiwanese, you know, all these cultures all over the world. So
alright, thank you so much for watching. This video took a lot of effort to put together, so if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or subscribe for more. I also made another video about interviewing Chinese who were born and raised overseas. I will be uploading the video within a few weeks, so stay tuned for that. Okay, I guess I will see you in the next video.